Should educators ignore popular culture or use it to strengthen literacy and SEL? Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Educators Table, where we examine education through the lens of leadership, research, and real world practice. So today's discussion may be one of the most important conversation educators, parents, and policymakers will have over the next 5 years, believe it or not. Should educators ignore popular culture? Talk to me. Or should we use it as a bridge to strengthen literacy, social emotional learning, and critical thinking? I wonder. Notice, I didn't ask whether we should celebrate it. I did not. I didn't ask whether we should ban it. I did not. I asked whether we should understand it, because those are three very different conversations. So across Jamaica today, here in Jamaica, social media moves faster than the curriculum, believe it or not, right? So a phrase can appear on TikTok today, or it can reach Instagram this afternoon, it can become a WhatsApp status tonight. That's true. And by Monday morning, students across the island using it into the classroom. So recently, we have seen expressions like, I beg your pardon, yes, red light, pepper light, blue. Whether we personally like these expressions or not, they have already become part of youth culture. So the question is no longer, how do we stop students from saying them? The real question is, what do we do now that they are already here? Throughout history, every generation has had its own language. Our parents had theirs. Our grandparents had theirs. Our generation Alpha and generation Z have theirs. Language evolves. Culture evolves. Technology accelerates both, right? So the challenge for education is deciding whether schools should pretend these culture shifts didn't happen, it don't happen, or intentionally help students to think critically about them. So let's examine two classrooms. In classroom 1, the teacher hears students repeating popular expressions. Immediately, stop that, don't say that, that's inappropriate. The conversation ends. Students stop talking, at least while the teacher is nearby. But have they actually learned anything? Probably not. No. Imagine classroom 2. The teacher hears the same expression. Instead of immediately shutting it down, the teacher asks, where did the phrase come from? What does it actually mean? Why has it become popular? How does language spread online? Is there a difference between using it with friends and using it during a job interview? Now students are analyzing language instead of simple repeating it. The phrase becomes a lesson rather than a distraction, right? So this is where literacy begins. Literacy isn't only reading books. Modern literacy includes understanding media, culture, digital communication, tone, context, audience, and meaning. Those are the very simple skills employers increasingly expect. But here's where the conversations become complicated. Some educators worry, if we bring slang into the classroom, aren't we encouraging it? That's a valid concern. Yeah, others argue. Is schools completely ignore youth culture, aren't we missing opportunities to teach? That's also a valid concern. Others argue. So, look at it now. Both sides care about students. Yes, they simply disagree on the method. As educational leaders, our responsibility isn't choosing the loudest opinion. It's examining the evidence. Research consistently shows that learning becomes more meaningful when students can connect new knowledge to what they already know. That doesn't mean everything students enjoy belongs in school. It means educators understand students before attempting to teach them. Connection is not endorsement. Understanding is not approval. Those distinctions matter, right? So now let's introduce what I call I beg your pardon, framework. This isn't about celebrating viral phrases, right? It's about transforming them into educational opportunities. Imagine a student say, I beg your pardon, instead of punishment alone. An educator could ask, what emotion was being expressed? What could have been said differently? How might that same message sound in a professional setting? Suddenly, students are practicing emotional regulation, communication, vocabulary, and audience awareness. That's social emotional learning in action. Now, consider red light. Instead of focusing only on the trend, teachers might ask, what does red traffic light represent? How do warning signs helps us make safer decisions? What personal red flags should we recognize in friendships, social media, or online behavior? The phrase becomes a conversation about judgment, decision making, and personal responsibility. Take paper lights, ask students. Why do certain words become popular? What makes something go viral again? How does the algorithm influence language? What role does social media play in shaping identity? Now you're teaching digital literacy, media literacy, cultural thinking, and communication. Even a word like blue, different people may interpret it differently. That's another language. How does context change meaning? How does culture influence interpretation? How does language evolve? Those are university level discussions introduced in age-appropriate ways. But we must also discuss the risk. Not every trend deserves classroom attention. Some trends promote violence. Others encourage disrespect. Some disappear within days. Educational leadership requires discernment. The classroom should never become an extension of social media. Instead, education should become the place where social media is analyzed, questioned, and understood. Schools shouldn't chase trends. They should teach students how to think about trends. So looking ahead, what might education look like over the next 5 years? Artificial intelligence will continue changing communication. Students will consume more short-form content. Attention spans may continue shrinking. New song will appear. Yes, this will appear almost weekly. So if education remains completely disconnected from students' live experiences, the gap between school and society may continue growing. But if schools react to every internet trend, the curriculum loses its purpose, right? So the future probably lies somewhere in the middle. Strong standards, strong literacy, strong values, and combined with cultural awareness. Alright, so imagine a graduation in 2023. I want to look at 2031 rather. Look at a graduation now in 2031. They should be able to understand popular culture without being controlled by it. They should know when informal language is appropriate and when professional communication is expected. So they should able to think critically, communicate respectfully, and analyze information independently. So those are future-ready citizens. Alright? So let us look now again. Educational leadership has never been about restricting every change, nor has it been about accepting every change. Leadership is about knowing which change deserves attention and which deserve caution. So that requires wisdom, emotion, not panic, not popularity, and also wisdom. So perhaps the real question isn't, should educators use popular culture? Maybe the better question is, can educators transform popular culture into meaningful learning without compromising educational standards? That's the conversation worth having, not just for today, but for the next 5 years and on and on and on. So hear what? I love to hear your perspective. Should schools ignore these strengths or thoughtfully use them to strengthen literacy, social emotional learning, and critical thinking? Remember, this isn't about taking sides. It's about preparing young people for a future where culture, technology, and education will become even more connected. If you enjoyed this discussion, subscribe to the Educators Table, where we explore the ideas shaping future of education in Jamaica and beyond. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Let's keep the conversation respectful, evidence-based, and focus on what matters most, helping every learner succeed. Until next time, keep learning, keep leading, and keep asking the questions that shape tomorrow.